Joining me now is New York Congresswoman Elise, the House Republican Conference chairwoman. Congresswoman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. Yesterday, we heard from Greg Abbott. He basically said that this Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua, is a foreign terrorist organization. Your reaction?
I agree with Governor Abbott. He has been an outspoken voice in exposing this border crisis that was caused, by the way, by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, as Joe Biden's borders are. And this new data that just came out, Maria, is incredibly revealing. That's the additional 500,000 illegals that have been sent all over the United States through the Biden-Harris mass parole program. That's on top of the, I believe, 10 million. Again, CBP puts out 8 million illegals who have illegally crossed our southern and northern borders. And it makes every district a border district. It's not just the southern border states like Texas. Even in my home district, Maria, we have had skyrocketing of illegals crossing the northern border in the Swanton sector. And this is leading directly to a loss of life of Americans and a lack of safety and security in communities.
Yeah, it's really disturbing, Congresswoman. I mean, those pictures of the Tren de Aragua gang intimidating and harassing that building in Colorado were, that was so striking. And now we understand that they're trying to do the same thing in El Paso, Texas. And we know that from the NYPD Chief of Patrol, John Schell, has been on the show, and he said that they are harassing New Yorkers as well. I don't understand the motivation behind keeping the border wide open that Kamala Harris has allowed and allowing all of these illegals, in some cases, to commit these kinds of crimes and murders. What's the motivation?
Well, the motivation, you talk to hardworking Americans, they know we have a border crisis. Every New Yorker for years they've been saying the illegals coming into New York City is a gang and violence issue as well. As President Trump said, these are not nice people. These are criminals that are pouring across our borders. And I believe it's because the left fundamentally believes in un-American. They have un-American values, and it is destabilizing the country. If you don't have borders, you do not have a country. It is unconstitutional. It is unlawful. And as I said, it's leading directly to losses of life, whether it's Laken Riley, which, of course, the American people mourn her loss, a loss that was avoidable if we didn't have these wide open border policies. Even in upstate New York, Maria, there are two very high-profile news stories. There was a 15-year-old raped in Albany, New York, by an illegal migrant who came here during Biden and Harris's terrible border policy. And then in Syracuse, on her 21st birthday, an American woman was raped and killed by an illegal and buried in a public park in Syracuse, New York.
Oh, my God.
These are stories that we should never be hearing, and it's a direct result of Kamala Harris as Joe Biden's open borders are.
Unbelievable. I'm with Jonathan Fahey this morning. He's a former acting ICE director. Jonathan, jump in here.
Yeah, it is interesting what you said. You're asking what the motivation is, and I can't see the motivation being anything other than political, wanting these people to vote both in the short term and the long term. You see with this freak out about the SAVE Act, how they are willing to, Democrats are willing to shut down the government to prevent any safeguards to prevent illegals from voting. But I do want to applaud you for bringing this to the attention of the American people at a greater level, because it really is a public safety, national security issue. But another thing that I think is interesting, and I wonder if you'll be focusing on this either today or in the future, but the New York Post a few weeks ago cited a study that illegal immigration cost the American taxpayers $150 billion just last year. And that's not going to go down next year. In addition to the cost, you also have problems like lack of access to health care. They're not bringing in doctors. But are you going to focus on the cost and how that affects the American people in addition to the public safety and national security issues?
Absolutely. And certainly as New Yorkers, we know that firsthand. We have had New York school children who have been removed from schools to house illegal migrants. We have had multiple instances where it's billions of dollars of taxpayer funds funding illegal migrants to provide them housing.
Yeah.
And again, people are struggling to make ends meet. Think about the inflation crisis. Think about the economic challenges that hardworking Americans are facing.
Yeah.
And you point out another important issue that will be on the floor today, that is the SAVE Act, to ensure that illegals and non-citizens are not able to vote in U.S. elections. Every Democrat opposes that. The American people should know that. This is an 85% approved issue. People know that in this country, in order to have safe and secure and constitutional elections, only American citizens can vote.
Yeah.
And yet the Democrat Party is so radicalized and become so political in how they've dealt with their border crisis that they want to allow illegals to vote.
Very disturbing.
And when they say, it is very disturbing, we're going to put this bill on the floor and expose every Democrat for their open borders, unconstitutional unconstitutional radicalism that they are today.
Yeah, well, we should point out that a few Republicans don't want it attached to the continuing resolution. Not that they don't want the SAVE Act, but they don't want it attached to the CR. But I got to get your take on Alejandro Mayorkas, having said all of that, okay? He's at the top of all of these, pyramids, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, the wide open border, 10 million illegals. You talked about the economic impact as well as murder of American citizens. Then you've got President Trump's life on the line again. This past week, a would-be assassin laid in waited there on the Florida golf course for hours and hours, 12 hours. The Secret Service under pressure. They did not actually do any checking or sweep of the perimeter. Again, Alejandro Mayorkas is sitting atop of all of this. He's overseeing the Secret Service. What are you going to do about it?
Well, first of all, the American people deserve answers, and we deserve answers now. We have a committee that the Speaker's appointed to do an investigation, and in my conversations, you're going to start seeing information of what they've found, both in the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt, as well as what just happened on the golf course at Trump Golf Course this past weekend in Florida. This should never happen in America. I know the Speaker of the House is having high-level conversations with the White House to ensure that the same level of protection is given to President Trump as is given to a sitting president. We're also looking at potential legislation and accountability measures. The Secret Service needs to come clean very, very quickly, and this should never, ever happen. It is unbelievable to think that in this country, this is the second assassination attempt in a period of a few weeks on the leading candidate for president of the United States and a former president, obviously. So he deserves a much more robust Secret Service presence that is equivalent to what the sitting president of the United States have, and Republicans intend to put some legislation on the floor to ensure that. And the Senate ought to take that up. Chuck Schumer should not brush this under the rug.
Well, how come you're not getting more information? You're an elected official. You haven't gotten information from the Secret Service about all these epic failures?
Well, you know, Maria, it takes subpoena. It takes us really using every tool we have, because the instinct, and whether it's the FBI, the DOJ, I've gone through this on so many committees before, they try to stonewall. And the people that are really suffering are the American people who deserve answers. This is not how our government should function. We are owed that as Congress. We have oversight. We are good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And most importantly, it's House Republicans who are going to continue to fight to make sure that President Trump has the security that he needs, while Democrats are spewing this vicious and violent rhetoric against him. We need to call that out as well. You have Democrats sitting members of Congress who have said President Trump should be eliminated. That can never happen, type of rhetoric.
Unbelievable. Really disgusting. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thank you. We'll be watching your work.
Thank you.
Elise Stefanik.